14 days before my wedding, my parents walked into Marcus's living room and told him I'd been hiding a child. My father leaned forward in the armchair, his expression grim. "She's been lying to you," Thomas said. "She always has." Marcus didn't flinch. He sat back and looked at them calmly. "I know." My parents exchanged a quick glance. A flash of triumph crossed my mother's face. They thought they'd won. Then Marcus finished. "I know you fabricated the entire story. I have a complete investigator's report right here." He slid a thick folder across the coffee table. The sound of paper against glass cut through the silence. My father's face drained of color. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. Before I explain how my fiancé dismantled their lies, let me ask, has your family ever sabotaged your happiness just to control you? If you understand that feeling, hit subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. To understand how we reach this moment, I need to rewind 2 weeks. My name is Diana Hartwell. I'm 32 years old and work as an events coordinator at a coastal resort in Monterey, California. My life here has been peaceful. Days spent planning oceanside events, evenings with Marcus planning our $40,000 wedding. Everything felt secure until my phone rang on a Tuesday night. My mother didn't bother with hello. "Nina, we have an emergency." Her voice had that familiar tight edge she used when she needed something. I set down my wine glass. "What's wrong?" "It's Cassandra." My mother's breath caught dramatically. "Your sister is drowning in debt. Credit cards, Nina. The collectors are threatening lawsuits. She needs $40,000 by Friday, or she loses everything." I closed my eyes. Cassandra was the golden child who never heard the word no. Growing up, my parents emptied my college fund to bankroll her lifestyle. I spent my 20s working double shifts to pay student loans while Cassie drove a sports car Dad leased for her. "I'm sorry she's dealing with that," I said evenly. "But I don't have $40,000 available." My mother paused. The silence stretched heavy. "You have the wedding fund." My stomach dropped. "You want me to cancel my wedding to pay Cassie's credit cards?" "It's just a party, Nina." My father's voice cut in from speakerphone. "You and Marcus can go to the courthouse. Family comes first. We need this money now." I listened to the strain in his voice. My parents lived in an upscale neighborhood, played golf on Sundays, maintained their country club facade. Yet here they were, desperate for my wedding money, with a panic that felt strange and urgent. "No," I said. The word felt foreign on my tongue. "I'm not canceling my wedding to fix Cassie's mistakes." The line went silent. When my mother spoke again, her voice was ice. "If you're going to be this selfish, you don't deserve a wedding. Don't expect us to attend." The dial tone hummed in my ear. They'd drawn their line. But as I stood in my kitchen listening to the ocean outside, a cold knot formed in my chest. My parents never simply walked away when denied. They always made sure I paid the price. I just didn't know yet what they were willing to do. 3 days after I refused their demand, the silence from my parents felt heavy, like humidity before a storm. Marcus and I tried to maintain our routine. Coffee on the balcony, watching the Pacific turn from gray to bright blue, but the peace felt fragile. Marcus is a wealth manager for high-net-worth clients. That Thursday morning, I noticed him pause while scrolling through his phone. His jaw tightened. He locked the screen and set it face down. When I asked if work was okay, he forced a smile and blamed a difficult client. I didn't know the sabotage had already begun. That afternoon, I was reviewing wedding paperwork when a strange memory surfaced, something I'd buried for a decade. At 22, fresh out of college, I'd applied for corporate benefits. An underwriter sent a rejection letter citing a discrepancy. a week-long admission at a rural medical clinic. I'd never been to any rural clinic. I remembered showing the letter to my father. Thomas had snatched it from my hand so fast his coffee spilled. His face flushed red. He said it was a clerical error, a mix-up with someone else's name. He'd promised to handle it and told me never to mention it again because it would only cause stress. Growing up, my parents often managed my administrative tasks, treating me as too incompetent to handle my own affairs. I was conditioned to comply. I let it go. Sitting in my Monterey home 10 years later, a cold shiver ran down my spine. That memory felt different now. It didn't feel like protection. It felt like a cover-up. My unease deepened when Marcus came home that evening. He loosened his tie and leaned against the kitchen counter, looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. He told me he'd run into my sister during lunch. Cassandra never left her side of town unless she was shopping. According to Marcus, she'd intercepted him outside a cafe, bought him coffee, and put on a performance. She looked exhausted, he explained. She played the concerned sister perfectly, saying she worried about our wedding. She whispered that I had a lot of hidden baggage and just wanted me to be happy after everything I put the family through. I gripped the counter edge. My sister was spinning a narrative from thin air. Cassie even told Marcus she never got to live her 20s because she was always cleaning up my messes. The blood rushed to my ears. It was a staggering reversal of reality. While I worked back-to-back shifts to pay loans, Cassie was flying to Europe on our parents' credit cards. I asked how Marcus responded. He took a sip of water and said he just listened. He didn't defend me. He didn't call her a liar. He thanked her for the coffee and walked away. His neutral reaction terrified me. Marcus was logical, analytical. If someone presented a warning, he would investigate. My parents knew this. They weren't picking a screaming fight. They were planting seeds of doubt, watering them with vague warnings, waiting for the roots to crack our foundation. I wanted to scream, to shake his shoulders and demand he see through the manipulation. But my childhood conditioning held me back. If I reacted emotionally, I'd only prove Cassie right. I swallowed my panic and changed the subject to dinner plans. The true weight of their psychological warfare hit the next afternoon. Marcus had gone to meet a client. I was tidying the house when I walked into his home office to return a pen. Everything was meticulously organized except for a single sheet of paper in the printer tray. I stepped closer. My heart hammered against my ribs. It was a screenshot of a direct message sent to Marcus on a professional networking site. The sender profile was blank, a ghost account. The message was chilling. "You're making a mistake. You don't know the real Nina Hartwell. She's keeping a secret that will ruin your life. Ask her what she did. Ask her why her family had to bail her out. Do your research before you sign a marriage license with a sociopath." The air vanished from the room. My knees weakened, and I grabbed the desk to stay upright. Sociopath. Secret. Bail her out. Someone in my family had created a fake profile to hunt down my fiancé in his professional sphere. But the most terrifying part wasn't the message itself. It was that Marcus had printed it. Why would he print an anonymous threat? Was he building a file? He'd told me about Cassie at the cafe, but he'd withheld this digital attack. The silence between us suddenly felt vast and treacherous. I backed out of the office, leaving the paper exactly where I found it. My hands trembled so hard I could barely turn the doorknob. The seed of doubt had been planted in Marcus's mind, and I had no idea if it had already begun to grow. The sabotage moved from shadows into glaring light on Monday morning. I was at my office finalizing catering menus when I tried to access our wedding guest list. My mother had insisted on managing that spreadsheet months ago, back when she was pretending to be supportive. I clicked the shared link. A gray screen appeared. Access denied. Contact administrator. I refreshed. Same error. I opened my phone to text my mother and saw the notification. Diana Hartwell removed you from the family group chat. I checked the shared photo albums. Gone. The folder with our holiday itineraries. Gone. With a few clicks, my parents had digitally erased me. A cold wave of nausea washed over me. This wasn't the first time they'd erased me to prove a point. At 16, I'd won a scholarship to a marine biology summer camp. When I returned home 6 weeks later, my bedroom had been converted into Cassandra's walk-in closet. My bed was gone, my posters stripped. My mother casually mentioned Cassie needed space for her pageant gowns and pointed me to the guest room. The message was clear then and now. I was temporary, easily displaced, easily erased. The digital lockout was only the opening move. The real strike came that evening. Marcus and I were preparing dinner when his phone buzzed. He read the message twice, his knife stopping mid-chop. "Your father just texted," he said. "He wants to meet for dinner tonight at that steakhouse downtown. Just the two of us. Says he wants to discuss a wedding surprise." My grip tightened on the wine glass. "It's a trap. They don't have a gift, Marcus. They want to poison you against me. Please don't go." Marcus wiped his hands and walked over, framing my face with warm hands. "Let me hear what they have to say. I deal with manipulative people every day. Your parents can't intimidate me. I'll be home by 10. He changed into a crisp shirt and drove away. I spent the next 3 hours pacing our living room, listening to waves crash against the shore, feeling rising dread. When the door finally opened past 10:30, Marcus walked in without smiling. He didn't cross the room to kiss me. The warm energy from earlier had vanished, replaced by rigid, chilling distance. He poured bourbon instead of wine. "How did it go?" I asked, voice trembling. Marcus stared out the window toward the ocean. "It was informative." His voice was flat, emotionless. He refused to elaborate. He claimed exhaustion and went straight to bed, turning his back to me. The chasm between us widened into a canyon. For the next 2 days, my fiancé became a ghost in his own house. He took phone calls in the garage, pacing while whispering into his phone. I strained to hear the muffled tones. "We need to move fast on this. Secure the documents before they realize what's happening. Yes, I'll sign the retainer today." Retainer. The word struck like a physical blow. You pay a retainer to a lawyer. My trauma response hijacked logic. My chest seized. The narrative wrote itself in my panicked mind. My parents had shown him something at that steakhouse. They'd presented a lie so convincing that Marcus was consulting an attorney to untangle himself from me. I spiraled into a dark hole. Every time I entered a room, Marcus closed his laptop. He stopped asking about flowers. He stopped talking about our honeymoon. I was too paralyzed to confront him. I believed I'd already lost. Friday evening arrived with the weight of a funeral. I sat on the sofa, staring blankly at a wedding magazine when the bedroom door opened. Marcus walked out carrying a leather duffel bag. The magazine slipped from my fingers. Marcus stopped near the door. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Nina, I need a few days of space." The air rushed out of the room. Space, the universal precursor to an ending. "Why?" I whispered, vision blurring. "Where are you going?" "There's a complex situation I need to handle," he said, shifting the bag strap. "I have noise in my head and I can't think clearly here. Don't call me this weekend. I'll reach out when I'm ready." No hug. No, "I love you." He opened the door, stepped into the humid evening, and pulled it shut. The lock clicked. I sank to the floor, pressing my palms against my eyes. The battle was over. My toxic family had infiltrated my haven, poisoned the man I loved, and successfully ruined my happiness. I sat in the dark alone, waiting for the final blow. The house felt like a vacuum after Marcus left. I spent Friday night curled on the living room rug. The silence pressed against my eardrums, the same silence that filled my childhood home whenever I asked questions my parents didn't want to answer. My mind searched frantically for clues. What did my parents say at that steakhouse? What lie could be powerful enough to make a rational wealth manager pack a bag and walk away? Then the memory hit with the force of a physical blow. 12 years ago. I was 20, grinding through junior year of college. My parents refused to co-sign student loans, claiming they needed clear credit for real estate investments. I worked morning shifts at a coffee shop and evening shifts at a seafood restaurant just to pay tuition. I smelled like espresso and fried fish for 3 years straight. Cassandra was 19, supposed to be starting sophomore year at a private university in Southern California. Instead, she came home to Monterey in mid-October without warning. My mother claimed Cassie had severe mononucleosis. They kept her locked in the guest bedroom for weeks with blinds drawn. When I saw her shuffling to the kitchen late at night, she looked like a ghost. Skin drained of color, eyes sunken. She wore oversized sweatpants and hoodies despite the heat. She refused to look me in the eye. A month later, Thomas and Diana packed Cassie into the SUV at 4 a.m. They told relatives she was doing a semester abroad in Eastern Europe to study art history. I stood in the driveway in my stained restaurant uniform, watching red taillights fade into darkness. I knew something was horribly wrong. But I was too exhausted, balancing 2 jobs and full course load, to investigate. I accepted their flimsy lie because surviving required all my energy. Now, sitting on my empty house floor, that memory tasted like ash. What was Cassie hiding 12 years ago? How did her mysterious illness connect to the anonymous threat Marcus received? How did it connect to the rural clinic my father warned me never to mention? Saturday morning, I had to work. The resort didn't care that my life was rubble. I had a 300-person destination wedding to execute. I dragged myself off the rug, stepped into a cold shower, dried my hair, painted on makeup to hide dark circles, and slipped into my tailored navy uniform. I built my armor piece by piece. For 6 hours, I functioned like a machine. I directed catering staff, adjusted lighting, supervised precise orchid placement. At one point, the bride had a meltdown because bridesmaids wore the wrong lipstick shade. I handed her champagne and spoke in soothing tones. I fixed her crisis while my chest felt hollowed out. I kept checking my phone hidden in my clipboard. No calls from Marcus, no texts. The silence was a persistent throbbing ache. I imagined him in a sterile law office, signing documents to break our venue contract. I didn't know how wrong I was. While I arranged orchids and swallowed panic, Marcus wasn't consulting a breakup lawyer. He was sitting in a windowless room in downtown Monterey, drinking stale coffee across from a corporate investigator. The investigator wasn't hacking sealed medical files. He was following a financial trail, tracking a specific large cash withdrawal Thomas Hartwell made 12 years ago. Marcus was spending his weekend tracing the coordinates of my parents' deceit. He wasn't abandoning me. He was arming himself for battle. I was oblivious to his loyalty. By 3 p.m., the ballroom was flawless. I retreated to my office, kicked off heels, rubbed aching temples. My phone screen illuminated. A new text appeared. Not from Marcus, from my mother. I stared at Diana Hartwell's name. I opened the message. We warned him about who you really are. You brought this on yourself. I read it twice. Not a mother checking on her daughter. A victory lap. Diana was gloating. She knew Marcus had left. She knew my relationship was fracturing. She wanted me to feel the crushing weight of her punishment for refusing to hand over $40,000. Something broke inside me in that quiet office, but it wasn't my spirit. It was the invisible psychological leash my family had kept around my neck for 32 years. The panic receded. The suffocating despair evaporated. The tears dried up, leaving my eyes clear and focused. I stared at the screen and felt a profound, chilling shift. My parents hadn't just exaggerated, they'd executed a calculated hit job on my character. They looked at my beautiful life and decided to burn it down because I set a boundary. My own mother was celebrating my heartbreak through text. I locked my phone and set it face down. The fear of abandonment that had dictated my existence vanished. You can't be abandoned by people who never truly claimed you. I took a slow breath. I slipped my heels back on and stood. I was done crying. I was done shrinking. If my parents wanted war, they were going to get one. While I stood in my office, I didn't know that 50 miles away, Marcus was already dismantling their lies piece by piece. I only learned the truth after everything settled. Marcus wasn't hiding to reconsider our relationship. He was sitting in a high-security conference room, gathering ammunition to destroy my parents' facade. He sat across from a private investigator named David, a former forensic accountant specializing in uncovering buried secrets of wealthy families. David didn't hack government servers. He used a simpler, more devastating method. He followed the money. David laid bank statements across the table, pointing to a highlighted row. 12 years ago, Thomas Hartwell authorized a substantial wire transfer from a secondary account, converting funds to untraceable cash. David tracked the dates to find where the cash vanished. The trail led to a private physician operating a discreet rural clinic on the outskirts of Monterey's wine country, a modest building surrounded by vineyards, far from prying eyes. The clinic specialized in quiet medical care for affluent families desperate to avoid scrutiny. Doctors demanded cash up front, leaving zero digital footprint. David pulled a photocopied document from the envelope, a private adoption surrender agreement obtained through a disgruntled former administrator. The name at the top, Nina Hartwell. Marcus stared at the signature. He knew my handwriting from countless grocery lists and notes on our counter. The signature on the legal document was a clumsy, rounded imitation, a blatant forgery. Marcus assembled the puzzle. Cassandra coming home 12 years ago. The mysterious illness, the baggy sweatshirts, the rushed semester abroad. The pieces clicked with sickening clarity. Cassandra was the one who hid in the bedroom. Cassandra carried a child. My parents orchestrated a secret adoption to protect their favorite daughter's reputation. They stole my identity to shield Cassie from scandal. Marcus felt cold. Calculated anger settle in his chest. He thanked David, gathered the documents, and slipped the folder into his briefcase. He didn't call me yet. He needed to set the stage. He drove home and sent a brief text to my father requesting an urgent meeting. Thomas and Diana arrived within the hour, driving their luxury sedan up the driveway expecting to claim victory. Marcus let them inside, offered sparkling water, directed them to the living room. He kept the folder tucked in his briefcase. My parents sat close on the sofa. Diana wore designer silk and pearls. Thomas wore a crisp golf polo. They arranged their features into masks of solemn concern, eyes darting around, calculating the wealth they were trying to preserve access to. Thomas cleared his throat, leaning forward. He reached into his pocket and withdrew folded paper, placing it on the coffee table and pushing it toward Marcus. "It's incredibly difficult to show you this," Thomas began, voice thick with rehearsed sorrow. "But we can't let you walk into marriage blind. We have a moral obligation." Marcus looked down. It was a faded clinic invoice from 12 years ago, bearing the Rural Medical Center logo, listing my name as primary patient, outlining charges for prolonged inpatient stay and postnatal care. Diana reached over, placing her hand on Thomas's. She let out a soft sigh, dabbing her dry eye with tissue. Nina has always been troubled, Marcus. She was reckless. She got pregnant at 20 and hid it from everyone. When truth came out, she refused responsibility. We handled quiet arrangements because she walked away from her own child without shedding a tear. Marcus didn't move. He kept his expression neutral. He let silence stretch, forcing them to fill it with more lies. She lacks fundamental maternal instinct, Diana continued, tone dripping with fake sympathy. Cassandra was devastated. We all suffered. Nina is cold, calculating. We love our daughter, but she's deeply unwell. If you marry her, she'll drain your resources and abandon you the same way. Marcus listened, analyzing their micro-expressions. He noted Thomas adjusting his watch, a nervous tell when lying about finances. He recognized them for what they were, predators wearing masks of concerned parents. He realized the audacity of their plan. They were willing to brand their daughter a sociopath, destroy her future, orchestrate elaborate deception, all to punish me for refusing $40,000. Marcus leaned back. He didn't raise his voice. He knew confronting them without my presence would only give them room to pivot. He wanted me to witness their downfall. Marcus reached for his phone and dialed my number. Diana and Thomas exchanged a confused glance. Their confident posture faltered. They expected Marcus to break down, thank them, assure them the wedding was canceled. They didn't expect a phone call. I was still in my office when my phone vibrated. Marcus's name flashed. My heart leaped into my throat. I answered on the second ring. Nina. His voice was steady, calm, the man I fell in love with. Yes, I breathed, gripping the desk edge. Are you finished with your shift? I just finished. Good. I need you to come home right now. Your parents are in our living room, and we have something important to discuss. He hung up before I could ask questions. I stared at the dark screen. The final pieces were moving into place, and I had no idea I was about to walk into the ultimate confrontation. The drive home felt like a lifetime. My hands gripped the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I pulled into the driveway behind their sedan, turned off the engine, took a steadying breath, and walked to the front door. The tension inside was suffocating. My parents sat close on our sofa, Diana's hands folded neatly, displaying diamond rings. Thomas leaned forward, elbows on knees. They looked like an elite united front. Marcus sat opposite in his chair, remarkably composed, like a predator observing trapped prey. A single sheet rested on the coffee table between them. I dropped my keys on the console. The metallic clink made Diana flinch. I walked to Marcus's side but didn't sit. I stood tall, refusing to shrink. What's going on? I asked, voice cold and measured. Diana offered a theatrical sigh. She looked at Marcus with profound pity, then turned to me. We had to tell him the truth, Nina. We couldn't let this man marry you without knowing what you did. We showed him the medical bill. We told him about the child you abandoned. I stared at her. The sheer audacity temporarily paralyzed my vocal cords. They'd actually done it, brought their fabricated weapon directly to my fiancé. I looked at the faded invoice on the glass, my name printed across the top. Thomas shifted, gripping his knees. He looked Marcus in the eye, playing the exhausted patriarch. She's a liar, always has been. The silence that followed was heavy and dangerous. I waited for Marcus to demand explanation. I braced to defend myself. Marcus didn't blink. He sat back, steepling his fingers. I know. My parents exchanged a swift look. Triumph ignited in my mother's eyes. They thought they'd won. Then Marcus finished. I know that you made it up, and I have the investigator's full report right here. He reached down, lifted the manila folder from his briefcase and dropped it on the coffee table next to their forged invoice. The heavy paper slapped against glass with a sharp crack. Color drained from my father's face. The triumph vanished from my mother's eyes, replaced by raw panic. Thomas's mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Marcus leaned forward, unfastening the folder clasp. He extracted documents without raising his voice. His calm precision made the moment infinitely more terrifying. "Let's review the summary," Marcus said, tone carrying boardroom chill. "The child is real, but doesn't belong to Nina. It belongs to Cassandra." Diana let out a strangled gasp, pressing a trembling hand over her mouth. 12 years ago, Marcus continued, tracing text with his index finger, Thomas Hartwell withdrew $65,000 from a hidden investment portfolio. Cash delivered to a private rural clinic. We have routing details. We also have testimony from a former administrator. You orchestrated closed private adoption to protect Cassandra's reputation after a teenage pregnancy, but you needed an airtight shield. So you brought Nina's ID cards? You paid staff to look away? You forged your eldest daughter's signature on surrender documents, permanently linking her name to the medical record. You stole her identity to save your favorite child. I stood frozen beside Marcus's chair. The puzzle pieces collided with staggering force. Cassie in baggy sweatshirts, the mysterious illness, the abrupt departure for fake semester abroad, the life insurance denial. My parents had sacrificed my future, my name, my medical history to preserve my sister's pristine image. Thomas stammered, hands shaking. "You can't prove this. This is slander. Illegal hacking." "I didn't hack anything," Marcus replied, voice dropping an octave. "Forensic accountants follow money, Thomas. Your money trail is a bleeding wound." Marcus picked up secondary papers. He wasn't finished. He was about to reveal the ultimate hidden truth. "Which brings us to last Tuesday," Marcus said, locking eyes with my father. "The urgent call, the desperate demand for $40,000 by Friday. You claimed Cassandra was drowning in credit card debt." Diana swallowed hard. Her posture crumpled. "That was another lie," Marcus stated. "Cassandra isn't in debt. You are. The $40,000 wasn't to bail out your golden child. It was to pay your extortionist." My heart stalled. Extortionist? Marcus turned paperwork so Thomas and Diana could see highlighted ledgers. "The adoptive family didn't stay in the dark," Marcus explained. "Years ago, they submitted standard DNA testing for the child's medical background. Through genetic registries, they matched with a distant cousin. It didn't take long to figure out the true biological mother's identity. They realized the wealthy Hartwell family orchestrated fraudulent adoption using stolen identity. That's severe felony, and they knew exactly what that secret was worth." I stared at my parents. The pristine facade shattered before my eyes. They weren't elite untouchables. They were hostages. "For 10 years, Marcus said, you've been paying hush money, scheduled untraceable transfers. You depleted savings, drained college funds, remortgaged the house. The extortion bled you dry. Last week, blackmailers demanded a lump sum of $40,000. You didn't have liquidity, so you tried to steal Nina's wedding fund. When she said no, you decided to ruin her life as punishment." The truth lay exposed on the glass table, ugly and undeniable. Diana began to weep, quiet, pathetic tears ruining expensive makeup. Thomas stared at the floor, shoulders slumped, stripped of arrogant authority. They'd tried to paint me as a sociopath to hide their own monstrous crimes. "Get out of my house," Marcus said. He didn't yell. The command was cold and absolute. He stood, towering over the two people who'd spent my life making me feel small. "Marcus, please," Diana whispered, voice cracking. We had no choice. We were protecting the family. You don't know the meaning of family, Marcus replied. Take your forged invoice and leave. If you ever contact Nina again, I'll hand this folder to state authorities and local press. You'll face identity theft charges and public ruin. Thomas stood on shaking legs. He didn't look at me. He couldn't meet my eyes. He grabbed his wife's arm, pulling her up. They shuffled toward the entry, looking like hollowed shells of the proud people who'd arrived an hour earlier. I watched the door close behind them. The lock engaged with a solid, satisfying click. Marcus turned to me, expression softening. He pulled me into his arms, holding me tight against his chest. The war was supposed to be over. Truth was out, enemy banished. But as I stood in the quiet hallway listening to their car start, a chilling realization crept in. My parents were broke, desperate, terrified. We'd taken away their financial lifeline and cornered them with threat of prison. Desperate people don't surrender. They lash out. The truth was out, but the fallout was only beginning. The heavy door clicked shut. I leaned against Marcus's shoulder, waiting to hear their car engine. Instead, I heard a sharp, piercing scream. My pulse spiked. I rushed to the window, sweeping back the curtain. Motion sensor lights illuminated the driveway in stark white. My mother wasn't in the passenger seat. She was sprawled across the concrete, clutching her chest, knees drawn up in agony. Her purse lay tossed aside, spilling lipstick across pavement. Thomas hovered over her, waving arms and shouting toward our windows. He looked frantic. I felt sudden terror. My childhood conditioning kicked in. I reached for the door handle, ready to sprint outside. Marcus gently placed his hand over mine, stopping the motion. He looked through glass, expression analytical and cold. Don't rush out there, he warned softly. Watch her breathing, watch her hands. I focused through the window. Diana was writhing, arching her back, letting out theatrical gasps, but her skin retained normal color. Her hands weren't trembling with genuine cardiac distress. They were carefully positioned on her blouse, protecting manicured nails from rough concrete. I watched her shift weight to avoid resting on her bare elbow. I realized Marcus was right. This was performance, weaponized vulnerability. The memory surfaced with bitter clarity. At 18, standing on a stage holding an academic trophy. Halfway through the ceremony, Diana claimed severe migraine. She gasped loudly, disrupting the row of parents. We had to leave before my name was called for the photograph. As soon as we reached home, her migraine vanished. She spent the evening drinking wine and complaining about auditorium seating. She used illness as a leash to yank attention back. Now she was playing the same card on my driveway. She wanted us to abandon boundaries, rush to her side, drown truth in manufactured guilt. Marcus didn't open the door. He pulled his phone and dialed emergency services, reporting an older woman experiencing distress at our address. We stood watching the spectacle under floodlights. Thomas yelled toward the house, demanding we take responsibility. We remained silent observers. 10 minutes later, sirens cut through the night. Red and blue lights flashed. A bright ambulance pulled in, blocking their sedan. 2 paramedics jumped out carrying trauma bags, kneeling beside Diana and asking sharp questions. I stepped onto the porch with Marcus beside me. Diana saw me emerge and her gasps intensified. She reached a trembling hand toward a medic, pointing a shaking finger at us. "They did this to me," she whimpered, voice fragile. "My own daughter is trying to kill me with cruelty. They're abusing us." The paramedics ignored dramatic accusations, operating with practiced efficiency. They strapped a blood pressure cuff, clipped a pulse oximeter, pressed a stethoscope to her chest. Thomas paced nervously. "Please help her. She has a delicate heart. The stress is too much." The senior paramedic checked the monitor. He unclipped the sensor and peeled the cuff from her arm. He didn't look panicked. He looked tired. "Your vitals are perfectly normal, ma'am," he stated, voice carrying professional irritation. "Heart rate slightly elevated, but oxygen levels optimal and rhythm steady. You're not having cardiac event. You're experiencing basic anxiety response." Diana stopped gasping. She blinked up, face flushing angry red. "Are you calling me a liar?" she demanded, fragile demeanor vanishing. Her voice was suddenly strong and sharp. "I'm telling you what diagnostic equipment says," the medic replied, standing and hoisting his bag. "We can transport you to hospital for observation if you insist, but there's no medical emergency. I suggest water and a quiet place to calm nerves." The paramedics walked back to their ambulance. Flashing lights shut off, leaving the driveway in security lamp glare. The diesel engine rumbled as the vehicle backed into the street and drove away. Diana remained sitting on concrete, theatrical performance dismantled by science and trained professionals. The lingering embers of my childhood fear finally burned out. The anger evaporated. Cold, profound clarity settled deep into my bones. I walked down porch steps and stopped 5 feet from where she sat. Thomas moved to help her stand, brushing dust from silk. They looked at me, expecting negotiation, tearful apology. They thought the old Nina would step forward to fix the mess. I looked at the woman who spent my life diminishing my worth. I looked at the man who enabled every cruelty to maintain fake prestige. "You're not attending my wedding," I said. The words hung in the night air, crisp and heavy. Thomas opened his mouth, but I raised my hand, silencing him. "You're no longer on the guest list. No longer welcome on this property. You tried to frame me as a monster to cover your felony. You tried to extract $40,000 from my future to pay for your mistakes. You're not my family anymore. Don't ever contact me again." Diana stared. Her jaw trembled, but fake tears were gone. She realized the psychological leash was broken. She had no leverage left. She turned away, opening the passenger door and sliding into the leather seat without looking back. Thomas stood in the driveway for a long moment, a man who'd gambled his entire estate and lost every chip. He walked around the car, got behind the wheel, started the engine. I turned and walked back up the stairs. Marcus held the door open. We stepped inside and locked the deadbolt together. I pulled my phone from my pocket. I opened contacts. I found my mother's name and tapped block, found my father's name and tapped block. I deleted their message threads, erasing their digital footprint from my life. I felt physical weight lift from my shoulders. The silence no longer felt predatory. It felt peaceful, the deep quiet of a sanctuary finally secured. Secrets within elite social circles don't stay buried long. They spread through golf courses, dining rooms, and charity galas. The investigator's report in Marcus's briefcase was a loaded weapon. Marcus never intended to publish documents online or hand them to gossip blogs. He operated within refined boundaries of corporate wealth management. He understood affluent families protect assets and reputations above all. Cassandra was engaged to a man named Brandon Cole, sole heir to a commercial real estate empire. His family employed risk assessment attorneys to thoroughly vet potential liabilities before marriage licenses were signed. Marcus simply arranged for a redacted summary of the financial extortion trail to cross the desk of Brandon's lead attorney, a professional courtesy, a quiet warning between financial custodians. The attorneys didn't care about teenage pregnancy. Wealthy dynasties sweep biological scandals under luxury rugs daily. What horrified the legal team was the criminal pathology: forged documents, stolen identity, ongoing active blackmail draining family accounts, the calculated attempt to destroy my life to fund extortionist demands. Brandon's family looked at Cassie and saw a walking legal liability, a woman raised by people willing to commit felonies to preserve image. Brandon confronted my sister Tuesday afternoon. Details trickled through the tight network of resort planners. Brandon didn't yell. He didn't offer counseling. He handled betrayal like a soured corporate merger. He demanded immediate return of his 4-carat engagement ring. He canceled their country club reservation with a swift phone call. He ordered security to pack her belongings and escorted her from their shared penthouse before sunset. He looked at the woman he was supposed to marry and realized he didn't know her. He saw toxic rot hiding beneath perfect tan and designer wardrobe. Cassandra was unceremoniously discarded. The elite circle she worshipped closed ranks. Wealthy friends stopped returning texts. Lunch invitations were declined. Exclusive boutiques treated her with cold, polite distance. The golden child became social pariah in 48 hours. I experienced the true depth of her downfall Wednesday night. A storm was moving across the coast, bringing heavy rain. Marcus was upstairs reviewing portfolios. I was brewing chamomile when sudden frantic pounding hit the front door. The knocker slammed against wood in chaotic, desperate rhythm. I checked the security monitor. A solitary figure stood on our porch, soaked by driving rain. I turned the deadbolt and pulled the door open. Cassandra stood shivering under harsh porch light. The pristine socialite was gone. Expensive silk clung to her skin, drenched and wrinkled. Her perfect blowout was ruined, plastered against cheeks in wet streaks. Mascara ran down her face, leaving hollow shadows. She looked exactly like the pale, terrified 19-year-old who hid in our guest bedroom 12 years ago. "Nina!" she gasped, voice ragged. "Please let me in. You have to help me." I stood firm, blocking the doorway. Cold wind whipped across the porch. "What are you doing here, Cassandra?" She wrapped arms around her torso, shivering. "Brandon left me. Everyone knows. The whole country club knows about the clinic, the blackmail. His mother called me a criminal. My friends are treating me like disease. I can't stay here. Nina, the shame is going to kill me. I need to leave tonight." I watched her unravel. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel the urge to accommodate her pain. "Where are our parents?" She let out a bitter, sobbing laugh. "They're locking doors and refusing to answer. They're terrified of lawyers. They told me I'm on my own. They threw me to the wolves." She grabbed my wrist, fingers ice cold, grip desperate. "I need $10,000, just $10,000. You have the wedding fund. Marcus has money. I can buy a plane ticket to LA tonight. I can change my name and start over. You're my sister. You're the only blood I have who can save me." I looked down at her hand gripping my wrist. I saw familiar entitlement hiding beneath panic. She wasn't apologizing for stealing my identity. She wasn't expressing remorse for telling Marcus I was a sociopath. She was playing victim to avoid consequences. She still viewed me as an automated teller, a convenient resource to drain when life became uncomfortable. She was a toxic byproduct of our parents' raising, believing she was immune to accountability. I peeled her cold fingers off my arm. I stepped back, creating clear physical boundary. "I'm not your escape plan, Cassandra." I spoke slowly, ensuring she heard every syllable over the rain. "You stood by while they forged my name. You smiled while they drained my college fund for your luxury cars. You happily watched them try to destroy my engagement so you could keep your secret buried. You built your perfect life on my bones. And now that your foundation is collapsing, you want me to buy you a ticket out of the rubble?" "Nina, please," she shrieked, stepping forward. "You can't do this to me." "I will not give you a single dime," I replied. "You're an adult. It's time you face reality you helped create." I pulled the heavy door closed. Cassandra threw her hands against the wood. The muffled sound of fists pounding echoed in the foyer. She screamed my name into the storm. A raw, jagged sound of pure entitlement denied. I turned the deadbolt, locking her outside in the dark. I walked back to the kitchen and picked up my tea. The golden child was finally dethroned. But a king and queen don't lose their favorite heir without seeking vengeance. The following morning, my parents proved they were ready to burn the world to punish me for closing that door.